While running for state auditor, that is a member of the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, you found a dozen tax loopholes that do not achieve their stated purpose. Do you now support closing these ineffective tax loopholes?
A number of loopholes do need to be closed. The question is, how can we get the political support for them? Unfortunately, most of those loopholes are something for quilting. It'll save us $80,000. So yes, we can get rid of a lot of loopholes that are in the $80,000 to $100,000 range, but guess what? It's not going to balance the budget. It's not going to save education. The question is, how do we, and I keep saying this, how do we have a well-run government? How do we have our trend lines for expenses that's more in line with revenue? Focus on loopholes, for example, will never solve any of our problems.
Mr. Doty.
Now you can't brush everything with a broad stroke. There are some good tax exemptions and there are some that are not. And so the ones that are not are the ones that we're talking about. And any new ones that are going to be put into place. What we need are sunset clauses and clawbacks. They need to have a deadline or a review period. Okay, we'll give you this tax exception, but in 5 years or 10 years, if you don't create those 10,000 jobs you said you were going to create, then it's going to go away. Or clawbacks are, if you don't create those jobs you said you were going to create, you're going to have to pay that tax exemption back. Because tax exemptions are taking money out of the pockets of our taxpayers. Because tax exemptions means that less dollars that we have to fund education, and we have to get that from our taxpayers. So sunset clauses and clawbacks are two ways that we can approach it as well. Thank you.
He tells me we're going to be taking questions from open mic from the floor. So here's a question you can all take aim at. As an individual, do you support I-591 or I-594? Representative Kutchmar, will you begin for us?
Okay. I hope that some of you have read those two initiatives by now and realize that 591 would send 594 back to the courts. It's an 18-page document. There are things in 594 that are very good, and there are some things in 594 that aren't. And I don't want to make my father commit a felony if he transfers a gun without getting it registered. Now, you need to understand these initiatives. I don't want to pass a bill that's already got a problem in it and then say, gee, we can go back and amend it later. That's what would happen with 594. I hope you all vote for whatever you feel is correct, and I hope that we're able to solve it in the legislature. Personally, I will not be voting for 594. It's got problems. I will be voting for 591. It's simply the status quo, because it will solve problems with 594. I do want to solve the problem of the tax loophole and the gun shows. Thank you.
I've been struggling with these two initiatives. I tend to like to support policies and try to educate people on policies where they get measurable results. These initiatives, I don't think will reduce the approximately 500 suicides or gun deaths that we have in our state every year. The good intentions of people who put forward the 594 are to be applauded. I'd much rather see us work on trying to reduce measurably domestic violence and other issues relating to what causes violence and harm in our society. So I'll probably figure this out before the election. Oh, like Jack said, after doorbelling 13,000 homes, I've had about 12 people say they're against the initiative. None have told me they're for it. So, and the legislator, especially one who represents the voters, try to take that into account when they make their final decision.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, the people will have to vote which way they want to go. I personally, and have looked at a lot of numbers, Background checks does reduce gun violence. Studies have shown that it does. And why do we have them at the retail shops? Why can't we expand that to gun shows and other places where dangerous criminals, the mentally ill, or those convicted of domestic violence, where they can be stopped from getting a handgun? And so definitely I do support 594. I oppose 591. Thank you.
Now I believe we're going to take questions from